The Grand Astoria Hotel looked like a palace. Crystal chandeliers dripped from painted ceilings 20 feet overhead. Marble floors gleamed beneath thousands of tiny lights. Fresh orchids and white roses overflowed from arrangements so extravagant they probably cost more than Nia's yearly salary. A string quartet played near the dance floor. Champagne flowed freely. Politicians mingled with celebrities. Old money brushed shoulders with new money. Everyone sparkled. Everyone belonged. Everyone. Except Nia. Nia, smile bigger, Patrice hissed while taking pictures at the charity gala. You look miserable. I am miserable. Nia adjusted the uncomfortable shapewear digging into her ribs beneath her emerald gown. Nia hated every second of it. She only attended because her company had sponsored the event. Unfortunately, her family treated it like a hunting ground for rich husbands, you know, Patrice said loudly, while eyeing a group of wealthy men nearby. If you lost about 50 pounds, you could actually pull somebody important. Nia forced a smile. Thanks. Oh, come on, her aunt added. We're just trying to help. Maybe rich men like confidence now, Nia muttered. Patrice laughed. Rich men like skinny. Before Nia could respond, the room suddenly shifted. People started whispering. Heads turned toward the grand staircase. Then someone said his name. Kingston Hayes is here. Nia blinked. Everyone in the city knew Kingston Hayes. Tech billionaire, real estate mogul, one of the richest men on the East Coast, and currently walking straight toward her. Her family straightened immediately. Patrice whispered, "Oh my God." Kingston moved through the crowd effortlessly in a tailored black tuxedo worth more than Nia's yearly rent. He was broader now, fitter, his beard perfectly groomed, dark curls neatly styled, but his eyes, warm brown, familiar. Nia's breath. Caught. No. No way. The billionaire stopped directly in front of her, then smiled softly, the same smile from the shelter parking lot. Hey, babe, he said gently. Sorry I'm late. The entire gala went silent. Patrice nearly choked on her champagne. Nia stared at him in shock. Daniel? His eyes crinkled warmly. Actually, he said, it's Kingston. Then he leaned closer. But I still like the name you gave me better. Now, before we find out why Baltimore's most eligible billionaire just called Nia babe in front of an entire ballroom, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments. What would your reaction be? In Nia's shoes? Because if I were her, I'd probably need someone to explain what was happening before I passed out. Now let's get into the story. Rain tapped softly against the bus stop shelter as Nia Brooks tightened her coat around her body and shifted the grocery bags digging into her fingers. The city was glowing with cold December lights, people rushing past without looking at one. Another, typical. That was why she noticed him. A large man sat curled against the brick wall beside the laundromat, wearing a hoodie too thin for the weather. His beard was overgrown, his dark curls matted beneath a knit cap, and his hands trembled slightly from the cold. People stepped around him like he wasn't there. Nia slowed. He looked lost. Not dangerous, not drunk, just confused. His eyes lifted. To hers, warm brown and painfully empty. You okay? She asked carefully. The man frowned like the question itself hurt. His voice cracked. I don't know. She hesitated. Most people would have kept walking. Nia knew that. Her mother's voice practically echoed in her head already. You can't save everybody, Nia. But something about him made her stay. What's your name? He looked embarrassed. I don't remember. That answer should have scared her more than it did. Instead, her chest tightened. Nia spent the next hour helping him get food from the deli still open across the street. He devoured the sandwich so quickly it made her throat ache. You got somewhere to stay tonight? She asked. He shook his head. So she called around until she found a shelter with one available bed. The entire cab ride there, he stayed quiet, staring out the window at the city lights like they belonged to another life. When they arrived, the shelter worker asked for his information. The man looked helpless again. Nia glanced at him before smiling softly. Let's just put Daniel for now. He looked at her. Daniel? You look like a Daniel. For the first time, he smiled. It transformed him completely. Even exhausted and heavy-set, even hidden beneath layers of neglect, he was handsome, dangerously handsome, and somehow familiar. Over the next several months, Nia kept checking on him. First, she told herself it was just to make sure he was okay. Then it became routine. Every Friday after work, she'd stop by the shelter with coffee or food. Sometimes they'd sit outside talking for hours. Daniel slowly came back to life. The shelter helped him get cleaned up. A local mechanic hired him to help around the garage after noticing how quickly he learned things. He still couldn't remember much about his past, but he was gentle, observant, and strangely intelligent. Too intelligent sometimes. You ever think maybe you were secretly a professor? Nia joked once. Daniel laughed deeply. Nah, too pretty to be a professor. Nia nearly choked on her drink. He grinned when she blushed. That became his favorite thing, making her blush. Nia never treated him like he was broken. That mattered too. Him more than she realized, because most people looked at him and saw failure, even her family. You spending time with that homeless man again? Her sister Patrice scoffed during Sunday dinner. He has a name, and you need standards. Nia rolled her eyes and reached for another biscuit. Patrice smirked. Girl, you already big. You can't afford to be desperate too. The table erupted into uncomfortable laughter. Nia smiled like it didn't hurt. It always hurt. Her entire life, people had made her feel like she should settle for scraps because of her weight. Too big. Too loud. Too dark. Too much. Meanwhile, Daniel looked at her like she hung the moon. One summer evening, they sat on the hood of his beat-up car outside the shelter parking lot, eating takeout noodles. You know, Daniel said quietly, I think you saved my life, Nia snorted. Please, I just bullied you into eating vegetables. I'm serious. His expression softened. When I woke up out there, I didn't know who I was, but every time you came around it felt like maybe I was someone worth finding. Nia looked away quickly before he noticed how emotional she suddenly felt. You are, she whispered. For a moment, it felt like he wanted to kiss her. Instead, his phone rang. He frowned at the unknown number before answering. Nia watched confusion shift across his face, then shock, then emotion so intense it stole the air from him. What? He breathed. Silence. Then, Mom? The next time Nia went to visit him, he was gone, checked out with family. That was all the shelter told her. Her stomach dropped. She called his phone. No answer. Again, no answer. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Eventually, the number disconnected. And just like that, Daniel vanished from her life. Back to tonight in the ballroom, Daniel standing before her after disappearing for 3 years. Nia's brain completely stopped working. Around them, cameras flashed from local media covering the gala. Conversations dissolved into whispers as people tried to figure out why Kingston Hayes, the notoriously private billionaire who avoided dating rumors like the plague, was standing in front of an overweight black woman from East Baltimore calling her babe. Patrice looked seconds away from fainting. Nia, she whispered harshly. Why does Kingston Hayes know your name? Kingston answered before Nia could. Because she's important to me. The room somehow became even quieter. Nia finally found her voice. You disappeared. The softness in Kingston's expression faltered. I know. You vanished for 3 years. Nia, you didn't answer your phone. You didn't call me. You just left. Her voice cracked despite her efforts to stay composed. She hated that it cracked, hated that after all this time, it still hurt. Kingston's jaw tightened with guilt. I tried to find a way back to you. That's funny, she snapped, quietly. Because I was exactly where you left me. Patrice's eyes widened. Their aunt looked horrified by the public tension unfolding in front of Baltimore's elite. Kingston glanced around the ballroom before looking back at her. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Naya crossed her arms immediately. "No." "Naya." "No." Her eyes burned. "You don't get to walk back into my life looking like a GQ cover and act like nothing happened." A few nearby socialites pretended not to eavesdrop. Kingston exhaled slowly, then did something shocking. He reached for her hand, not delicately, not secretly, openly, publicly, like he had no shame whatsoever in wanting her. The massive diamond watch on his wrist glinted beneath the chandelier. Lights as his thumb brushed gently across her knuckles. "I never forgot you," he said quietly. Nia's chest tightened dangerously. "You forgot me long enough." Pain flickered across his face. "You were the first thing I remembered." That hit harder than she expected. The ballroom disappeared for a second. Just him, just those eyes. The same eyes that used to light up when she brought him sweet tea and sandwiches after work. Patrice suddenly cleared her throat loudly. "Well," she said nervously, "this is unexpected." Kingston finally looked toward her family. His expression cooled several degrees. "I agree." Patrice blinked. The man beside Kingston, probably security, looked like he was trying not to smile. Kingston returned his attention to Naya. "Please," he said softly. 10 minutes. Nia should have walked away. She should have protected herself. Instead, against every ounce of common sense she possessed, she sighed. 10 minutes. The Gala coordinator nearly tripped over herself, escorting them to a private balcony overlooking the harbor. The moment the doors shut behind them, silence settled between them. Nia stood near the railing with her arms folded tightly. Kingston stayed a few feet away, like he knew he hadn't earned the right to stand closer. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, he said quietly, "I woke up in a hospital." Nia looked at him. "My family found me through facial recognition. After someone at the shelter posted a fundraiser online." He gave a humorless laugh. "Apparently becoming a missing billionaire makes national news." Nia stared. "You were missing." "For almost 8 months." "What happened to you?" His expression darkened. "Car accident." He rubbed the back of his neck. "My SUV went off a bridge outside the city during a storm. They found the vehicle in the water. But not me." Nia's stomach dropped. "They thought you were dead?" "Yeah." Her eyes widened slowly. Kingston leaned against the railing. "I barely survived. Head trauma. Memory loss." His gaze lifted to hers. "By the time my memories started returning, I already knew you." Nia swallowed hard. "You could have called." "I wanted to. Then why didn't you?" His silence answered before his words did. "Nia, my family is complicated." She snorted softly. "That's one word for billionaires." A reluctant smile tugged at his mouth before fading. "When they found me, I wasn't really in a position to make decisions anymore. Doctors, lawyers, security." He looked exhausted. Suddenly, "They took over my life. And somehow in all that time you couldn't send one text?" "I did." She frowned. "What?" "I sent dozens." His eyes hardened with frustration. "None went through." Naya blinked. "My mother changed my number. My assistant filtered calls. They said I needed stability and privacy until I fully recovered." He laughed bitterly. Translation: they didn't want the man they expected to run a billion-dollar empire talking about some woman from a shelter. Nia's chest tightened. "Oh." Kingston looked at her carefully. "They investigated you." Her eyebrows shot up. "They what?" "I found out later." His jaw clenched. "The second they realized I kept asking for you." "That's insane." "They're insane." Nia shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. So what? You just listened to them? No. He stepped closer. I fought them constantly. His voice lowered. Because every memory that came back somehow led to you. Nia's throat tightened painfully. The coffee you used to bring me. The yellow scarf you wore all winter. The way you laughed when you got nervous. His eyes softened. The way you looked at me like I was still a person. Nia looked away quickly, because no one had ever looked at her that way either. Not fully, not until him. Kingston took another careful step closer. When I finally regained control of my company, I looked for you. She frowned. You did. I went to your apartment first. You knew where I lived? You fell asleep on my shoulder once and your ID slipped out your purse. Nia groaned softly. That's embarrassing. You were adorable. She hated how fast that made her blush. Kingston smiled faintly before his expression turned serious. Again. You moved. Nia sighed. Rent went up. His eyes darkened immediately. You shouldn't have had to leave your home. She laughed softly. Kingston, regular people move all the time. He looked like the concept offended him personally, then his expression gentled. I searched for almost a year. Nia stared at him. A year? I found your company through a business acquisition last month. He hesitated. Then I saw your name attached to tonight's guest list. Nia's heart pounded unevenly. So, this whole gala, I came because of you. The harbor wind brushed against her dress as she stared at the man in front of her. 3 years ago, he'd sat outside a laundromat with nowhere to go. Now, he owned half the skyline behind him. But somehow, the way he looked at her hadn't changed at all, like she mattered, like she always had. Nia stared at the city lights reflecting off the harbor water, trying to steady the storm inside her chest. You really searched for me for a year? She asked quietly. Kingston nodded without hesitation. I hired investigators. That made her laugh softly in disbelief. Of course, billionaires have investigators. They were terrible at finding you, apparently. She smiled despite herself. God, she missed him. That realization hit harder than she expected. Because she had spent 3 years convincing herself she imagined what they had, convincing herself she'd been foolish for getting attached to a man who disappeared. But standing here now, looking into those familiar brown eyes, none of it had been fake. Kingston stepped closer, carefully, like approaching a frightened animal. I know I hurt you. You did. I'd take it back if I could. Nia looked down at her heels. You know what the worst part was? His voice softened. What? I thought something bad happened to you. Kingston's face tightened. For months, every time I saw a homeless person on the street, her throat burned. I kept wondering if it was you. His eyes closed briefly, like the thought physically hurt him. Nia. Then eventually I got angry. She laughed bitterly. Because how dare you make me care that much? Kingston moved before she could react. 1 second there was space between them. The next, his large hands were gently holding hers. Warm. Careful. Familiar. You were the only thing that felt real when I couldn't remember myself, he said quietly. Do you understand that? Nia looked up slowly. When I had nothing, you still treated me with kindness. Emotion thickened his voice. You saw me at my absolute worst and somehow still looked at me like I mattered. Tears burned behind her eyes instantly. Nobody had ever said something like that to her before, not with that kind of sincerity. Kingston swallowed hard. And, for the record, he added softly, you were beautiful then too. Nia laughed through her tears. Kingston. No. His thumb brushed over her knuckles again. I'm serious. I remember sitting outside that shelter wondering how someone could look at me without disgust while carrying so much pain herself. Her breath caught. You noticed that? I noticed everything about you. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open inside her. For years, people had reduced her to one thing: the funny, fat friend, the dependable daughter, the girl who should be grateful for scraps of affection. But Kingston had always looked deeper, like he saw every hidden part of her and loved her anyway. A sharp voice suddenly interrupted them. Kingston! The single word cut through the tension like a knife. Both Nia and Kingston turned. An elegant older woman stood near the balcony. Doors. Silver silk draped perfectly over a figure that had been maintained with money, discipline, and sheer force of will. Diamonds glittered at her throat, wrists, and ears. Every inch of her screamed old money and power. Her expression hardened the second she saw Nia. Kingston's entire body tensed. Mother. Ah, there she was. The reason he looked ready to start a war. Mrs. Hayes approached slowly. Her eyes swept over. Nia, the gown, the curves, the jewelry, the hair, judging, calculating, dismissing. I've been looking for you everywhere, she said to Kingston. The mayor has been asking for you, she said smoothly. He can survive 5 more minutes. Her gaze snapped to Nia, I suppose. The words weren't openly rude, they were worse. The kind of insult wealthy people delivered with a smile. Nia recognized it immediately. Mrs. Hayes folded her hands neatly. I didn't realize you were spending the evening privately. Kingston's jaw tightened. Nia isn't a guest. No? The older woman looked unconvinced. If this is another one of your rebellions, Mother. His voice dropped dangerously. Mrs. Hayes ignored him. You disappeared for 8 months. Reappeared with memory issues and emotional instability. Her gaze remained on Nia. Forgive me for being concerned about sudden attachments. Nia flinched. Kingston immediately stepped closer. You don't know anything about her. Then enlighten me. The challenge hung between them. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Kingston slid an arm around Nia's waist. Not possessive. Protective. Certain. The movement startled Mrs. Hayes. She isn't some random attachment, Kingston said. His voice was calm, which somehow made it more dangerous. She is the reason I'm standing here. Silence. Mrs. Hayes blinked. What? Kingston looked directly at his mother. She found me. The older woman's expression didn't change, at least not immediately. She what? When I was living on the street. The words landed like a bomb. Nia watched Mrs. Hayes go completely still. Mother, Kingston continued, meet Nia Brooks. A long silence followed. Then, the Nia Brooks? The hostility vanished so quickly it gave Nia whiplash. Mrs. Hayes looked at her again. Actually, looked at her. Not through her, at her. You're Nia. Nia blinked. Yes? The older woman's composure cracked. Not much. Just enough. Oh. Kingston frowned. Oh, Mrs. Hayes stared at Nia, then laughed softly to herself, almost in disbelief. Well? The sharpness disappeared from her voice entirely. That explains everything. Nia looked between them, completely confused. Mrs. Hayes sighed. 8 months. Kingston froze. Mother, no. She shook her head. She deserves to know. The older woman looked directly at Nia. You found him before we did? Nia swallowed. Yes. We had investigators searching 6 states. Kingston groaned. Mother. We had hospitals looking for unidentified patients. Her voice softened slightly. Private investigators. Security teams. Nia's eyes widened. Mrs. Hayes continued quietly. For 8 months we found nothing. The older woman glanced toward her son, then facial recognition software flagged him. Nia blinked. What? Mrs. Hayes nodded. One of our security firms had expanded the search. A camera picked him up. Kingston looked away. We finally knew where he was. Nia's chest tightened. Mrs. Hayes smiled sadly. We thought it was over. The older woman paused. It wasn't. What happened? Mrs. Hayes exhaled slowly. We contacted him. Kingston closed his eyes, immediately, like he knew exactly where this story was going. He'd already been recovering fragments of memory, Mrs. Hayes said. Small pieces, faces, places, names. Nia listened carefully. But when we reached him and confirmed who he was, her voice softened. Everything came back at once. Kingston rubbed the back of his neck. Mother. No, Mrs. Hayes ignored him. It was too much. Nia's stomach dropped. He collapsed. Silence. Nia stared. What? The doctors called it traumatic memory recovery. Kingston groaned. Mother. He was unconscious for nearly 2 days. Nia turned sharply toward him. You never told me that. His expression became sheepish. It wasn't exactly my best moment, Mrs. Hayes continued. When he woke up, his memories had returned. Her eyes softened. All of them. Nia's chest tightened. But the doctors were concerned. Mrs. Hayes folded her hands. The shock was severe. They worried about his mental and emotional stability. Kingston sighed. Here we go. So yes, Mrs. Hayes said dryly. We monitored him closely. Closely? Very closely. Nia looked between them. Mrs. Hayes almost smiled. He wasn't allowed to make major decisions for months. Mother. You had a medical team. Mother. You had therapists. Mother. You had security. Kingston covered his face. Mrs. Hayes looked entirely unapologetic. We weren't taking chances. Nia couldn't help smiling. You basically put him under supervision. We absolutely put him under supervision. Kingston muttered something under his breath. Mrs. Hayes ignored him. Once the doctors agreed he was stable, things became complicated. How? The older woman's expression sharpened. The company. Kingston immediately groaned again. Oh no, Mrs. Hayes looked delighted. Oh yes, Nia frowned. What happened? The board fought. Kingston dropped his head. Mrs. Hayes continued. Some members wanted him reinstated immediately. Others didn't, Kingston muttered. Others argued that 8 months away made him a liability. Nia's eyes widened. They tried to keep him out, Mrs. Hayes laughed. They tried. Kingston finally looked up. It got ugly. Very ugly, Mrs. Hayes agreed. There were votes. Several. Lawyers. Many. Nia stared. Mrs. Hayes smiled proudly. In the end, they lost. Kingston shook his head. Barely. You regained your position, Mrs. Hayes corrected. Her voice carried unmistakable pride. The company was yours before you disappeared. She looked at Nia. And once he was healthy enough, it was his again. Nia glanced at Kingston, the billionaire, the CEO, the man who had once slept on a shelter cot. The contrast made her dizzy. Mrs. Hayes followed her gaze. Then her expression softened. And do you know the first thing he asked after all of that? Kingston looked horrified. Mother, don't. Nia. The older woman ignored him completely. He asked if we'd found you. Silence. Complete silence. Nia stared. Mrs. Hayes laughed quietly. You have no idea how tired we were of hearing your name. Mother, for months. Mother, for months. Kingston covered his face. Mrs. Hayes looked delighted. He kept talking about a woman with a yellow scarf. Nia's breath caught. The woman who brought him coffee. Kingston looked ready to jump off the balcony. The woman who sat with him when nobody else would. Nia's eyes burned. Mrs. Hayes looked at her warmly now, almost affectionately. You were important enough to survive whatever state his mind was in. The words landed heavily. Nia didn't know what to say to that. Neither did Kingston, apparently. You saved my son's life. The sincerity shocked her, not financially, not socially, not medically, emotionally. The older woman's voice softened. He was frightened, vulnerable, alone. She smiled sadly. And while the rest of us were searching for him, you were the one actually there. Nia blinked rapidly. For the first time since arriving, Mrs. Hayes seemed less like a cold socialite and more like a mother who nearly lost her child. The woman who had looked at her like she was beneath notice minutes ago was suddenly looking at her with gratitude, real gratitude. Mrs. Hayes reached out and squeezed Nia's hand. "If I'd known who you were when I walked onto this balcony," she admitted quietly, "this conversation would have started very differently." She sighed. Quietly, "The mayor truly is waiting for you," she told Kingston. "Unfortunately, your absence has become noticeable." "I don't care. I know." A faint, tired smile touched her lips. "That's the problem." Then, unexpectedly, she looked at Nia. "And for what it's worth, thank you." Nia blinked. Mrs. Hayes straightened gracefully. "You found my son when nobody else could." The sincerity in her voice surprised both of them. Before Nia could respond, Mrs. Hayes gave a small nod and disappeared back into the ballroom. Kingston stared after her suspiciously. "She's up to something." Nia laughed softly. "She thanked me. She's rich." That could mean anything. That startled a genuine laugh out of her. God, she missed this, missed him. Kingston's expression softened, hearing her laugh. "There it is." "What?" "That sound." He smiled faintly. "I used to spend entire days trying to make you laugh. You also used to flirt outrageously for free food. It worked, didn't it?" Unfortunately. They smiled at each other for a moment before the reality of everything settled again. 3 years. Pain. Waiting. Missing pieces. Kingston's smile faded first. "There's more," he admitted quietly. Nia's stomach tightened immediately. What more? His hesitation alone terrified her. "Kingston. When my memories started returning," he exhaled slowly. "Not all of them were good." The cold harbor wind brushed across the balcony. Nia watched his face carefully. What happened? Kingston leaned against the railing beside her. "My company wasn't exactly built by good people." His jaw tightened. "My father especially." Nia stayed quiet. "I spent most of my life becoming the version of a man they wanted." He laughed humorlessly. "Cold, efficient, untouchable. But you weren't like that with me, because I couldn't pretend around you." His eyes lifted to hers. "You met me stripped of everything. No wealth, no status, no power, just a lost man trying to survive." Kingston looked away toward the skyline. "When I went back, it was ugly." "How ugly?" "There were lawsuits, internal corruption, people inside my company stealing money while everyone thought I was dead." His expression darkened. "Some people benefited from me disappearing." Nia frowned. "That sounds dangerous." It was. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. "Kingston. There were security concerns." He hesitated. "Real ones." "You think somebody hurt you on purpose?" "I don't know." His voice lowered. "But my accident stopped looking accidental after a while." Nia stared at him. "That's why they locked your life down?" He nodded slowly. "My mother thought anyone from before my disappearance could be a threat." "Oh." Kingston immediately looked guilty. "She investigated everyone around me, employees, friends." He swallowed hard. "You." Nia crossed her arms instinctively. "What exactly did she find?" "That you worked 2 jobs while taking care of your father after his stroke." Her eyes widened slightly. "That you volunteered at food drives twice a month." His voice softened. "And that you routinely spent your own grocery money helping strangers." Embarrassment crept up her neck. She really dug deep, huh? She couldn't understand why I cared about someone outside our world. His eyes met hers again. "Then she realized you helped me before knowing who I was." Nia looked away. That changed things. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Kingston reached into his jacket pocket. "Nia, there's something I've carried for 3 years." He pulled out an old folded photograph, weathered at the edges, carefully preserved. Nia frowned as he handed it to her. Then her breath caught. It was her, taken candidly on the shelter parking lot hood. She was laughing at something off camera, holding noodles in one hand while her scarf blew sideways in the wind. "You kept this?" Kingston smiled softly. "You gave it to me." "I did not. You dropped it accidentally one day." He looked almost shy suddenly. "I kept it." Nia stared. "At the picture. You carried this around for 3 years?" Everywhere. Her chest hurt, because nobody had ever treasured her before. Not like this. Kingston stepped closer carefully. "I know I don't deserve another chance automatically," he said quietly. "I know I hurt you." Nia looked up slowly. "But if there's even a small possibility," his voice roughened slightly, "I'd like to start over." The vulnerability in a billionaire's eyes should not have felt this devastating. Yet here he was, looking at her like the answer mattered more than anything else in the room. Then suddenly, NIA! Patrice burst through the balcony doors looking panicked. Both of them jumped. "Nia, there's a situation." Nia frowned immediately. "What happened?" Patrice looked strangely pale. "There are reporters downstairs." Kingston's face hardened instantly. "Reporters asking about what?" Nia asked nervously. Patrice looked between them awkwardly. "You?" Kingston cursed under his breath. Nia blinked. "Me?" Patrice nodded quickly. "They found out you knew Kingston before he got his memory back." She swallowed hard. "And apparently someone leaked pictures of y'all together outside the shelter years ago." Kingston went terrifyingly still, not shocked, furious. "What pictures?" he asked quietly. Patrice held up her phone with trembling fingers. "Oh my God," she muttered. "They're everywhere already." Nia stepped closer reluctantly. Her stomach dropped. A grainy photo filled the screen. She and Daniel, Kingston, sitting on the hood of his old car outside the shelter, sharing takeout noodles. Another showed her helping him carry donated clothes inside. Another caught him looking at her with that same soft expression he still wore now. The headlines underneath were already vicious. Billionaire air-hid relationship with shelter worker mystery. Woman from Kingston Hayes' missing years revealed gold digger or secret girlfriend. Nia's face burned instantly. Of course that's where people's minds went. Kingston took the phone from Patrice with a dark expression. His jaw flexed harder with every headline he read. Then his eyes narrowed dangerously. They used your full name. Nia's chest tightened. "Oh no." Patrice looked panicked now too. "There are already comments online." She hesitated. "People are being awful." Kingston handed the phone back slowly. "Security's taking care of it." "You can't take care of the internet," Nia muttered weakly. His expression sharpened instantly when he heard the hurt in her voice. "Nia, I knew this would happen. Nobody has the right to talk about you like that." "But they are." Her throat tightened painfully. "And you know what people see when they look at me standing next to you?" His eyes flashed. "They see the woman I love." The words hit so hard she stopped breathing for a second. Patrice gasped outright. Kingston looked almost startled himself, like the truth had escaped before he intended it to. Silence swallowed the balcony. Nia stared at him. "You..." Her voice came out faint. "You love me?" Kingston stepped closer slowly. "I think I started falling in love with you before I even knew my own name." Tears stung her eyes immediately, because nobody had ever chosen her first before. Not openly. Not proudly. Patrice suddenly looked deeply uncomfortable. "Well," she said awkwardly, "I'm gonna go stand literally anywhere else." Neither of them noticed her leave. Kingston's focus never left Nia. The ballroom noise faded again. Just him. Just those eyes. "I didn't mean to say it like that," he admitted quietly. "But I'm not taking it back either," Nia laughed, shakily through tears. "You really know how to ruin waterproof mascara." A small smile tugged at his lips. "I can buy you more." That is the most billionaire response possible. I'm still learning. She shook her head, overwhelmed. Kingston, this is a lot. I know. You disappeared for 3 years, and now suddenly the entire city thinks I'm your secret girlfriend. You were never secret to me. Her heart betrayed her with the way it fluttered at that. Kingston reached up slowly. His fingers paused near her cheek, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His knuckles brushed gently against her skin. You know what the worst part was? He asked softly. What? Getting my life back and realizing none of it mattered if I couldn't find you. Nia closed her eyes briefly. That kind of honesty felt dangerous, because she believed him. A knock interrupted them before she could respond. One of Kingston's security men stepped onto the balcony. Sir, Kingston sighed immediately. What? Now? The press situation is escalating, meaning, the guard hesitated, someone leaked old medical information regarding your disappearance. Kingston's expression darkened. Nia frowned. What kind of medical information? The guard looked uncomfortable answering in front of her. Say it. There are reports claiming you suffered severe psychological impairment after the accident. He paused carefully. Some outlets are implying Ms. Brooks manipulated you during that time. Nia froze. Kingston's face turned cold enough to cut glass. Who released that? We're tracing it now. Nia stepped backward instinctively. There it was, the real danger of this world. Rich people scandals, media cruelty, public humiliation. And somehow she'd gotten dragged directly into it. This is bad, she whispered. Kingston turned toward her immediately. No. Yes, it is, her voice cracked. People already think I'm some desperate fat woman chasing your money. Nia. And now they're saying I took advantage of you while you were vulnerable? The shame in her voice visibly hurt him. That isn't true. But it sounds believable to people like them. She laughed bitterly through tears. A billionaire wakes up with amnesia, and suddenly some plus-sized black woman from East Baltimore is around. You know exactly what narrative they're gonna create. Kingston moved toward her immediately. They don't know you. They don't have to. His chest rose sharply with anger. No. His voice turned firm. I won't let them reduce you to that. You can't control public opinion. Watch me. Nia blinked. Oh, he meant that. Not arrogantly either. Just factually. Kingston Hayes did not look like a man used to losing battles. He turned toward his security. Guard, prepare a statement. Sir? I'm ending this tonight. Nia frowned immediately. Ending what? The speculation. Before she could stop him, Kingston pulled out his phone. Then he opened social media. Nia's eyes widened. What are you doing? He looked at her steadily while typing. Telling the truth. Her stomach flipped. Kingston. I spent 3 years silent. His thumbs continued moving across the screen. I'm done letting people speak for me. Then his phone buzzed. Post uploaded. The security guard checked his own phone seconds later and looked stunned. Sir! Nia snatched the phone from Kingston's hand before he could stop her. Her breath caught reading the post. A picture filled the screen. Not from tonight. From years ago. She didn't even know he had it. It showed her asleep against his shoulder on the shelter parking lot hood while he looked down at her like she was precious. The caption underneath read, "The woman who helped me survive when I had nothing is not a scandal. She is the reason I survived at all. Everything I am today exists because she showed kindness to a stranger everyone else ignored. You can disrespect me if you want. You will not disrespect her." And at the bottom, also, yes, that's my girl. Nia stared at the screen so long her vision blurred. Her hands trembled slightly around the phone. Behind them, the security guard's own phone began vibrating non-stop with notifications. Kingston's post was exploding across the internet in real time. He posted that? Patrice squealed from somewhere near the doorway. Oh my God! Nia looked up slowly. You called me your girl on the internet. Kingston looked completely unbothered. "You are my girl." Her cheeks burned instantly. "Kingston! What?" His expression stayed innocent for all of 2 seconds before a grin tugged at his mouth. "Too much? Yes. Not enough, honestly." Patrice made a strangled noise behind them. "I suddenly understand why women date rich men." Nia shot her a glare without heat, but before anyone could say more, Kingston's phone rang. His expression shifted the second he saw the caller ID. "Who is it?" Nia asked quietly. "My board chairman." "That sounds serious." "It is." "He," answered calmly. "Richard." Even from several feet away, Nia could hear shouting through the phone speaker. Kingston's face remained cold. "No," he said flatly. "I don't care what investors think." More yelling. Nia shifted awkwardly. Apparently billionaires got in trouble too. "Then they can sell their shares," Kingston replied calmly. "I'm not apologizing." Another burst of angry noise came through the phone. Kingston's jaw tightened. "You know what's actually bad for the company?" he asked icily. "The fact that someone inside my circle leaked confidential medical information." Silence. "Then, I'll deal with the board tomorrow." He hung up without another word. Patrice looked terrified. "Can he do that?" "He owns 61% of the company," the security guard answered casually. "Oh," Patrice blinked. "So he can basically do whatever he wants?" "More or less." Kingston ignored the conversation completely, his attention returning to Nia. "You okay?" The fact that he asked so gently after casually terrifying corporate executives almost made her laugh. "I don't know." That honesty softened him immediately. The anger drained from his expression. "I'm sorry this became public like this." Nia looked back at the phone. His post already had millions of views. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. Surprisingly, a lot of them were positive. People were reposting the shelter photos alongside his statement. Some called it romantic. Others called it the first genuine thing they'd seen from a billionaire in years. One comment read, "She loved him before the money." That says everything. Nia swallowed hard. "I don't understand why you're doing this." Kingston frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "You could have ignored me tonight." Her voice grew quieter. "Your life would have been easier." His expression changed instantly. "Nia, you're rich, powerful, famous." She laughed weakly. "Women probably throw themselves at you daily. I don't want them." The certainty in his voice stole the rest of her words. Kingston stepped closer slowly. "I wanted the woman who sat outside shelters with me eating terrible noodles." A reluctant laugh escaped her. "They were not terrible. They absolutely were. You used to inhale them." "I was homeless. Standards were low." Nia shook her head, smiling despite herself. Then Kingston's expression gentled again. "I missed you every day." Her heart physically ached hearing that. Because she missed him too, more than she ever admitted aloud, the version of him before the money came back. Before the suits and security teams and headlines. But standing here now, she realized that version still existed, underneath all of this. Kingston reached for her hand again. "Nia." The way he said her name made her stomach flip. "I know. This is messy. That's one word for it. But I'd like the chance to do things right this time." She looked at him carefully. "What does that even mean?" "It means dinner." Nia blinked. "Dinner?" "Yes. You caused a media hurricane and now you want to take me to Applebee's." Kingston looked horrified. "Applebee's?" She burst out laughing. His expression softened instantly hearing it. There she is again. What? That laugh. God, the way he looked at her should honestly be illegal. Patrice suddenly gasped dramatically while staring at her phone. "Oh my God." Nia frowned. "What now?" Patrice turned the screen toward them. A video clip from the ballroom had already gone viral. It showed Kingston crossing the crowded Gala floor directly toward Nia, while everyone else stared. The caption across the video read, When the billionaire finally finds the woman he never forgot. The comments underneath were chaos. Wait, she's gorgeous. He looked at her like she hung the moon. The family members making fun of her in the background are sick. No, because him saying, "That's my girl," healed something in me. Nia blinked repeatedly. People are defending me. Patrice looked guilty suddenly. A lot of them are dragging us, actually. Nia snorted. Good. Patrice groaned. You know what? Fair. Even Kingston smiled at that. Then Nia noticed something strange. More and more people inside the ballroom were glancing toward the balcony doors, phones out, whispering, watching. Kingston noticed too. His expression hardened slightly. They're trying to get pictures. Nia instinctively stepped back, immediately overwhelmed again. Kingston caught the movement. His face softened instantly. Hey! His voice lowered. Look at me. She did. You don't have to hide. Emotion climbed unexpectedly into her throat, because her whole life she had hidden. At family events, in photos, at parties. Always shrinking herself first before someone else could do it for her. But Kingston looked at her like he couldn't understand why she ever would. He stepped closer, carefully. Come home with me. The words stunned her. Not because they sounded suggestive, but because they sounded sincere, warm, like he already thought of wherever he was as somewhere she belonged to. Nia swallowed hard. Kingston. You don't have to decide anything tonight, he said quickly. He exhaled softly. I don't want you dealing with this alone. Her chest tightened painfully again, because nobody had ever offered her softness like this before, not without conditions, not without embarrassment, just care. Then suddenly, Nia Brooks! A voice shouted from inside the ballroom. A reporter had somehow made it past security. Cameras flashed near the doors instantly. Did you manipulate Mr. Hayes during his memory loss? Kingston's entire demeanor changed, cold, sharp, dangerous. Security moved instantly toward the reporter. But the damage was done. Nia froze. The humiliation hit fast and hard. Before she could react, Kingston turned toward the room and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. She saved my life. The ballroom went silent again. Kingston stepped, fully in front of her protectively. He let his gaze drift across the gathered crowd before speaking, his tone calm and impeccably polite. I've always believed that how we treat others, especially those who can offer us nothing in return, reveals far more about our character than our accomplishments ever could. I'm choosing to believe what we witnessed today was an unfortunate exception. I'd be disappointed to discover otherwise, as it would make any future dealings between us rather difficult. The silence inside the ballroom became immediate and absolute. No glasses clinking, no whispering, nothing. Even the reporter looked startled, because Kingston Hayes didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The calmness in his tone somehow made the warning sharper. Security quickly escorted the reporter out, while flashes from cameras exploded across the room. Nia stood frozen behind Kingston. Nobody had ever defended her like this before. Not publicly. Not proudly. Certainly not a man with the entire city watching. Kingston slowly turned back toward her. The coldness vanished from his expression almost instantly. You okay? He asked softly. And somehow that nearly broke her, because moments ago, he looked capable of destroying careers. Now he was looking at her like her feelings mattered more than any of this. Nia nodded quickly before realizing tears were already sliding down her cheeks. Kingston's face softened immediately. Oh, sweetheart. The endearment wrecked her. Completely. She looked away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, she whispered. This is just a lot? She nodded. Kingston glanced around the ballroom full of staring strangers before making a decision. Come on. He took her hand gently. Not dragging. Not possessive, just steady. Safe. The crowd parted instantly as he led her through the ballroom. People stared openly now, some curious, some judgmental, some unexpectedly warm. But none of them mattered, because Kingston never let go of her hand once. Patrice hurried behind them, looking overwhelmed. Nia, she whispered. The mayor just nodded at you. Nia blinked. What? And I think that actress over there follows you on Instagram now. What? Kingston smirked faintly beside. Her, you're trending. That is not comforting. It's a little comforting. She shot him a look. He looked suspiciously pleased with himself. By the time they reached the front entrance, a wall of paparazzi had gathered outside the building behind barricades. Cameras flashed wildly the second the doors opened. NIA. Over. Here! Kingston, is she your girlfriend? How long have you been together? Miss Brooks, what do you think about the accusations? Nia instinctively froze. Her anxiety spiked instantly. Kingston noticed immediately. Without a word, he moved closer until their shoulders touched. Then he leaned down slightly. You trust me? The question caught her off guard, but somehow the answer came easy. Yeah. His expression gentled. Okay. Then, before she could overthink it, Kingston wrapped an arm around her waist and guided her forward, confidently, proudly, like he had zero intention of hiding her. The flashes intensified. Nia's heart pounded wildly, but Kingston stayed calm beside her, occasionally glancing down at her with quiet reassurance. And strangely, that helped. Until a reporter suddenly shouted, Mr. Hayes, what do you say to people claiming she's only with you for money? Kingston stopped walking immediately. The entire crowd quieted. Nia closed her eyes briefly. There it was, the ugly part. But Kingston turned slowly toward the reporter with an unreadable expression. Then he said, She met me when I smelled like a subway station and owned 2 hoodies. A few people laughed unexpectedly. Kingston continued calmly. She fed me when she barely had enough for herself. His arm tightened slightly around Nia's waist. So if you genuinely think this woman wants me for money, you're probably not intelligent enough to interview me. Several reporters choked, trying not to laugh. Even Nia stared at him in shock. Kingston, she whispered. What? He asked innocently. You cannot insult the press. I absolutely can. Patrice nearly fell over laughing behind them. The reporters erupted into overlapping questions again, but Kingston ignored them completely as a sleek black car pulled forward. Security opened the back door. Kingston paused before helping Nia inside first. The moment the doors shut behind them, silence filled the car. For the first time all night, they were alone. Nia exhaled shakily. Oh my God. Kingston loosened his tie slightly. Yeah, that was about how I felt too. She looked over at him, then suddenly started laughing, real laughing, the kind that made her stomach hurt. Kingston blinked in surprise before smiling. What's funny? You, she gasped between laughs. You called a reporter stupid. He earned it. You're ridiculous. You like me. Nia rolled her eyes, still smiling. Unfortunately, he was right. Kingston watched her carefully for a moment. Then, his expression softened again. I missed seeing you happy. The laughter faded slowly from her face, because the sincerity in his voice always hit too hard. Nia looked down at her hands quietly. You know, she admitted softly, I used to check shelters sometimes. Kingston's brows furrowed. What? After you disappeared. Pain crossed his face instantly. Nia, I knew it probably wasn't you. She shrugged weakly. But every now and then I'd see somebody sitting alone and wonder. Kingston looked devastated hearing that. You were looking for me too. She laughed softly without humor. For a while. I'm sorry. I know. Silence. Settled again. Not uncomfortable, just full, heavy with everything they lost. Kingston stared out the tinted window for a moment before speaking quietly. I bought the shelter. Nia blinked. You what? The one you took me to. Her eyes widened. You bought a shelter? I renovated it too. He glanced toward her carefully. They renamed one of the kitchens after you. Nia stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You named part of a shelter after me? You were already volunteering there half the time anyway. That is not the point. Kingston smiled faintly. It made sense. Nia covered her face briefly. This is insane. Probably. You're really just out here casually changing entire buildings because of feelings. I'm rich, Nia. My hobbies are limited. That startled another laugh out of her. God. She forgot how easy he made breathing feel sometimes. The IT car slowed suddenly. Nia glanced outside the window, then frowned. This wasn't a penthouse district. This was the harbor? Kingston looked oddly nervous for the first time all night. I wanted to show you something first. The driver parked near a quiet waterfront park, glowing with string lights. Kingston got out first, before walking around to open her door himself. Nia stepped out carefully. The harbor breeze carried the scent of salt water and summer rain. Then, she noticed it. Across the street stood a small building with warm lights glowing through the windows. A restaurant. No, not just any restaurant. Nia's breath caught. It was the old diner, the tiny late-night diner she used to take Daniel to, when the shelter food was terrible. Only now it looked completely restored. Beautiful. Above the entrance hung a new sign, Yellow Scarf Cafe. And that's where we're going to leave Nia for tonight. After spending the entire evening being reminded that women like her don't get fairy tale endings, the last person she expected to see walked into the ballroom and changed everything. The city's most eligible billionaire crossed a room full of celebrities, politicians, and socialites and walked straight to her. Now everything has changed, and Nia must decide what comes next. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you were Nia, would you give Daniel a second chance, or would you make him work very hard to earn that forgiveness? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 2. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next story.